The Militia of St. Mary's. Part 1. By Derek Slayton. Chapter 1. Day 0+1. 9:37 a.m. A gentle flurry of snowflakes descended upon the modest, secluded compound nestled just a short distance north of St. Mary's, Idaho, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. At first glance, it appeared unremarkable, yet beneath its unassuming exterior lay a meticulously crafted stronghold. 10 structures stood amid the dense forest, encircled by a barrier of trees stretching out 150 yards in every direction, with only a solitary path leading to the imposing 8-foot wall that encased it. Within this enclave, a network of buildings served various purposes. Most were humble bunkhouses, providing shelter in the wilderness, but 4 larger edifices served as communal hubs. Dominating the landscape was the dining hall, a spacious structure capable of accommodating 60 souls, where hearty meals were prepared with care in the kitchen at its rear. In the heart of the compound stood the armory, its walls lined with an arsenal of weaponry and ammunition, a testament to the need for vigilance in these uncertain times. Tucked away in a distant corner lay the medical facility, its doors open wide to those in need, though unfortunately witnessing a surge in activity as of late. Amidst the snow-laden scenery, the gathering hall buzzed with life as inhabitants congregated around a flickering television and a pair of ham radios, their only link to the outside world in this remote sanctuary. Tatum, a weathered veteran of 45, sat beside his wife and child on the couch, his graying hair a testament to the trials he had weathered. His gaze was fixed upon the television screen, where images from Spokane, just 60 miles northwest of their location, played out a scene of chaos and horror. Creatures. No, they were more akin to monsters, rampaged through the streets, attacking unsuspecting civilians with savage ferocity. Beside him, Maggie endeavored to distract their son Dylan with a picture book, shielding him from the grim reality unfolding on the screen. But Tatum couldn't tear his eyes away, grappling with the surrealism of the unfolding events. A blonde newscaster appeared, her once immaculate appearance marred by streaks of mascara, evidence of the tears she had shed. With a visible effort to compose herself, she addressed the audience. "Folks, we are still waiting on the president, the governor, or one of their representatives to make a formal statement on the situation that seems to be unfolding all across the nation." She began, her voice strained with emotion. "We don't have confirmed reports of what's going on, however we advise that you stay sheltered in place. If you are in a safe spot, do not leave. Barricade the doors and windows. Do not let anyone inside, no matter if you know them or not," she continued. Before the newscaster could continue, a sudden commotion off-screen seized her attention, causing her to halt mid-sentence and pivot towards the source of the disturbance. For a moment, confusion clouded her features, but soon terror overtook her as she let out a piercing scream, struggling to rise from her seat. As she attempted to stand, her microphone cable snagged on the table, jerking her back with a violent tug. Despite her frantic efforts to free herself, a pair of bloodied stage hands descended upon her, their actions swift and brutal. The air reverberated with her anguished cries, filling the room with an eerie dissonance. Sensibility returned in the form of Maggie's gentle tap on Tatum's arm, drawing his attention away from the unfolding horror on the screen. "Do we really need to see that?" Maggie's voice carried a mix of concern and discomfort. "I'm sorry, honey," Tatum murmured apologetically, his eyes still fixed on the television. With a decisive motion, he reached for the remote control, swiftly rewinding the footage. The tracking bar at the bottom of the screen indicated a 2-hour recording, steadily regressing towards its inception. Just then, Eric, a 35-year-old veteran with a slight limp and dark hair, entered the room, garnering Tatum's attention with a nod of acknowledgement. "Maggie, why don't you take Dylan over to the mess hall and grab a bite to eat?" Tatum suggested, his tone gentle yet authoritative. "Devin got a late start on breakfast this morning, so it should be piping hot by the time you get there," Eric added, offering a reassuring smile. Maggie exchanged a glance with Tatum, who returned it with a soft smile and nod of encouragement. As she rose from the couch, he spoke, his voice infused with quiet reassurance. We're going to be okay up here. Whatever this is, it will pass. As Maggie nodded in agreement, she gently scooped up young Dylan in her arms, preparing to depart. In her absence, Eric approached, his attention drawn to the ongoing broadcast. "Still watching that newscast, huh?" Eric remarked, his tone a mix of curiosity and concern. "Yeah," Tatum replied, his eyes still fixed on the screen. "Any information we can gather about these things could be crucial. The longer they stay off the air, the more likely it is we'll have to confront this head-on." Eric raised an eyebrow. "Learned anything new on your fifth viewing?" Tatum shook his head ruefully. "Just that a headshot puts them down, and they don't appear to be all that bright." "And the illness behind it all?" Eric inquired. Tatum let out a heavy sigh, his expression darkening with reluctance. They never mentioned it directly, however, it seemed like all of the initial reports of violence were centered around the hospitals. And with the stories over the last couple days about the mysterious illness that was ripping through town, Eric added. "It seems logical that these two events are connected," Tatum concluded with a somber nod. "Especially since we have our own issues with that illness," Eric noted gravely. "Which is why I'm here. The doc needs to see us." Tatum's brows furrowed with worry. "Is it getting worse over there?" "It's been bad," Eric confirmed grimly. "We're reaching a point where tough decisions need to be made." Tatum nodded solemnly, feeling the weight of leadership settle upon his shoulders. Following Charlie's sudden illness a few days earlier, he found himself thrust into the role of camp leader, a responsibility he hadn't sought but now couldn't escape. With 25 men and their families seeking refuge under his watch, he understood the necessity of rising to the occasion. As the two men made their way towards the door, Tatum paused, peering into one of the radio rooms. Inside, Reed, a retired Special Forces veteran at 37, manned the communications equipment. Tall and muscular, Reed exuded a sense of capability that matched his background. "You got anything, Reed?" Tatum inquired. Reed shook his head, his expression grave. "Just more chaos out there. Portland, Seattle, even down near San Diego. Whatever's happening, it's widespread." "Okay, keep at it," Tatum instructed before continuing on with Eric by his side. The compound seemed unnervingly quiet. The families huddled indoors despite the protection of tall walls and vigilant guards. Even with these defenses in place, no one dared to risk venturing outside. "How many patients does the doc have?" Tatum asked Eric. 15, Eric replied grimly. "Jesus," Tatum muttered. "Yeah, it's 6 of our guys and 9 family members," Eric confirmed. "Has he been able to help them at all?" Tatum inquired. "I don't know," Eric admitted. "He just sent me to find you." Tatum's stomach twisted with apprehension. That can't be good. As they reached the medical building, an ominous cacophony greeted Tatum and Eric, sending shivers down their spines. The ghastly banging and eerie moaning emanated from within, heightening their unease. Before they could pinpoint the source of the distressing sounds, the doc emerged, his weathered face betraying years of hardship and wisdom. With emotion, he beckoned them to follow him deeper into the building, towards the individual rooms. "What the hell is that noise, Doc?" Tatum demanded, his nerves on edge. "My worst fear." The doc replied gravely. Leading them to the other side of the main room, the doc directed their attention towards the glass separating them from the individual chambers. There, Charlie pounded on the glass, but it was no longer the familiar figure they knew. "Oh my God," Tatum gasped, horror gripping him. "I can confirm that whatever virus this is, it's causing the outbreak of these things," the doc explained, his voice heavy with sorrow. Approaching the glass, Tatum locked eyes with the hollow gaze of what used to be Charlie. The creature inside thrashed violently, its intent clear: to break free and unleash havoc. "Has this happened to any of the others?" Tatum inquired, his mind racing with dread. "Not yet," the doc replied grimly. "We need to quarantine them, and fast," Tatum asserted. "I'm ahead of you, Tatum," the doc reassured, leading them to the adjacent room. Peering inside, they beheld a scene of restraint and desperation. Half a dozen individuals, bound tightly and connected to various apparatuses, lay motionless save for the occasional cough or subtle movement. It was a grim tableau of containment and uncertainty. "Are you shitting me, Doc?" Eric exclaimed incredulously. "What would you have me do?" The doc retorted, his voice tinged with frustration. "I checked on Charlie when I noticed he wasn't moving, stepped out to grab a syringe, and when I returned, he was up and about. If I hadn't left the room at that precise moment, you'd be facing two of those things in there, and this conversation wouldn't be happening." Eric's demeanor softened, acknowledging the precariousness of the situation with a nod. "There's nothing else you could have done, Doc," Tatum interjected. "The question now is, what do we do?" "We need to put them down, sooner rather than later," the doc stated somberly, his words hanging heavy in the air. Silence descended upon the room, the weight of the decision pressing upon them all. "Do you have a way to do it painlessly?" Tatum inquired. "I do. One shot in the arm, and they drift off to sleep, never to wake again," the doc confirmed. "Should we bring the families in to say goodbye?" Eric suggested. "A few have already come and gone over the past day. After Charlie passed, I started turning them away. I believe most already know it's too late," the doc explained. "But they deserve the chance," Eric persisted. Tatum interjected firmly, his voice carrying authority. "We don't have the luxury of time, and we can't afford the risk. Look at Charlie over there. Imagine if he were to break loose. You've seen the news reports. It would be chaos." "But they're restrained," Eric countered. "And what message does that send to the families?" Tatum challenged. "Yeah, our boys would understand, but would they? It's trouble we don't have time to deal with." Eric pondered Tatum's words for a moment before conceding with a nod. "Okay, I'm with you. Doc, what do you need?" "I'll lend a hand," Eric offered. "We have to mix some stuff together." "Come on, I'll show you," the doc replied, leading Eric away to prepare the necessary supplies. As they departed, Tatum interjected once more. "When you inject them, make sure to slide a knife into their brainstem," Tatum instructed firmly. Turning around slowly, the doc and Eric exchanged puzzled glances. "Tatum?" Eric questioned. "We have to assume they'll turn into those things. We can't afford to take any chances. Once they're gone, make sure they stay down," Tatum explained, his tone unwavering. Eric and the doc stood in silent agreement. "What about Charlie?" Eric raised a concern. "I doubt he'll go quietly." Tatum considered for a moment before nodding and drawing his handgun. "Doc, any objection to me putting a hole in your window there?" Tatum asked, gesturing towards Charlie's chamber. "Under normal circumstances, I would protest, but given the current state of things, it might be the safest option," the doc conceded. "Do you want me to fetch a suppressor?" "So the families don't, Eric offered, his voice tinged with concern. "It's fine. We'll have to inform them eventually. We can't shield them from reality any longer," Tatum replied. Eric and the doc exchanged nods before heading off to begin their grim task. Meanwhile, Tatum approached the window, locking eyes with his mentor through the glass as he raised his handgun, aiming at Charlie's forehead. "I'm sorry, man. I truly am. I wish you were here because I have no doubt you could lead us through this crisis. But you have my word that I'll do my best to fill your shoes," Tatum murmured, his voice heavy with sorrow. With a deep breath, he pulled the trigger. The gunshot shattered the silence, and Charlie slumped to the ground in a lifeless heap. Tatum stepped back, his expression grim, before exiting the building, determined to maintain his composure. Outside, the falling snow provided a momentary distraction as Tatum stood, letting the cold flakes kiss his skin. He holstered his handgun, taking a moment to collect himself. As he rubbed his eyes, Reed came running up, concern etched on his face. "You okay, Tatum?" "I heard a shot," Reed asked, his voice filled with worry. "Yeah, I'm fine. Charlie is." Tatum's voice trailed off, his grief palpable. Reed nodded understandingly. I'm sorry. It's okay, Tatum replied, pushing aside his emotions and focusing on the task at hand. You got something for me? Tatum inquired, his tone businesslike. Yeah, we've got a situation. Come on, I've got somebody on the radio that you need to talk to, Reed informed him. Chapter 2. Reed and Tatum hurried back to the radios, where a small group awaited, including Reed's younger brother Frank, stationed just outside the door. Though not a military veteran like his brother, Frank possessed formidable combat skills and was warmly received by the others. Is he still on the line? Reed inquired, his attention fixed on Frank. Yeah, but I got something else, Frank responded. It's going to have to wait, Reed replied firmly. Just don't wait too long. Frank's tone carried a hint of foreboding, setting both men on edge. Despite the ominous vibe, they brushed it aside and entered the room. Two other men stood near the first radio room door. Edgar, in his 40s and lacking military background, had mastered survival in the wilderness over the past decade. Devin, the group's newest member, retired from the military at a young age of 30 after 3 harrowing deployments. Initially met with skepticism, his recounting of combat experiences in the desert erased any doubts about his capabilities. Acknowledging Edgar and Devin with a nod, Tatum proceeded into the first room, while Reed settled in and grasped the receiver of the ham radio. Ben, you still there? Reed's voice resonated through the receiver. Yeah, I'm here, Reed, came Ben's response. I'm putting you on with Tatum now. If you don't mind, tell him what you told me, Reed instructed. Tatum settled into his seat and grasped the receiver, ready to converse with Ben. Hey Ben, what's going on, buddy? Tatum said. It's a next-level shit show up here, Tatum, Ben responded bluntly. Tatum glanced over to Reed, who leaned in and whispered, Ben is northwest of Spokane. Seems to be a lot of that going around of late, Tatum remarked cryptically. You have no idea, Tatum, Ben replied, his voice tinged with frustration. By all means, Ben, please enlighten me, Tatum prompted. The military turned tail and ran away, Ben declared, his words causing Tatum to exchange a curious glance with Reed, who merely shrugged in response. You want to run that by me again there, Ben? Tatum requested. Not sure I can make it any simpler for you. The military turned tail and ran, Ben reiterated. Ran to where? Tatum inquired. The hell if I know, man. But my cousin's kid was stationed at the Air Force Base just down the road. They shipped out, the whole lot of them, loaded up everything of value they could get on the transport planes and took off to God only knows where, Ben explained, his words painting a bleak picture. Are you sure they aren't just moving resources? Tatum questioned. Pretty damn sure. I rode up there a little while ago. Broke out one of my fancy drones and flew it around the base. Normally, if I did that, I would have some armed soldier boys aiming their rifles at my head. But that didn't happen. And it wasn't because they were busy. There was nobody home. Unless you count those things, Ben elaborated, his words sending a chill down Tatum's spine. Well, that's less than ideal, Tatum remarked grimly. Oh, it gets worse, Ben's voice crackled through the receiver. Been talking to some of my buddies around the country. Hearing the same story. Military is picking up anchor and setting sail. Not sure where to, but it's pretty clear that we weren't invited. I appreciate the heads up, Ben. It sounds like we're on our own, Tatum responded, his voice tinged with resignation. Yep. I know you boys are a little better equipped than I am. Figured you deserve to know what's up, Ben acknowledged. Do you need us to come give you a hand? Tatum offered. I appreciate the offer, and I just might take you up on it one of these days. But right now I'm nestled in tight in my rural estate, Ben explained. Tatum exchanged a puzzled look with Reed, who leaned in and whispered, he has a bunker. Tatum couldn't help but crack a half smile, shaking his head before addressing Ben again. Okay, Ben, you stay safe, buddy. We'll have somebody monitoring the airwaves, so if you need something, you let us know, Tatum assured him. Will do, Tatum. You boys stay safe too, Ben replied before the line went dead. Tatum tossed the receiver onto the table in frustration. So, we're on our own. Can't say I'm surprised, but damned if I wasn't hoping to be proved wrong, Tatum remarked, his voice heavy with resignation. We can manage up here, Tatum, Reed offered reassurance. For how long? We have what? 3 weeks worth of food for the number of people we have here? We're going to have to figure something out because I don't think this situation is going to just resolve itself. If the military is retreating, Tatum voiced his concerns, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Yeah, they know more than we do with what's going on. And they're spooked by something, Reed agreed. Frank poked his head into the room, effectively halting the ongoing conversation. Sorry for pissing on your cake here, but we got a situation, he announced. Tatum released a weary sigh, swiveling his attention toward Frank, who gestured toward the adjacent radio room. Without hesitation, Tatum rose from his seat, and Reed trailed behind him. I got Mac on the line, Frank informed them. Mac. Why does that name sound familiar? Tatum questioned. Gun store owner down in St. Mary's, Frank clarified. Recognition dawned on Tatum, and he nodded as he assumed control of the radio. Hey Mac, what's the situation? He inquired. Charlie, thank Christ. Whole damn world is going to shit down here, came Mac's distressed voice through the receiver. This is Tatum, he identified himself. Where in the hell is Charlie? Mac demanded. Charlie has. Passed on, Tatum reluctantly disclosed. There was a moment of heavy silence before Mac responded with bitterness. Son of a bitch. He was a hell of a man. And I'm going to assume he left you in charge of the boys. He was a hell of a man. And yes, I'm now in charge, Tatum confirmed. Okay, Tatum. Not sure if you have the balls to fill his shoes, but we're about to find out, Mac remarked. How can we help Mac? Tatum inquired. The town's gone crazy. That dumbass of a mayor told people that they should head up to the school to shelter, and way too many of them took his advice. About an hour ago something happened there, and now there's 1,000 of those things running through the streets, Mac explained urgently. Tatum's gaze shifted back to Reed and Frank, who tensed visibly at the dire news. What do you want us to do? Tatum asked. Well, it would be nice if you boys could do what you do best, and kick some ass. Maybe take these things out and restore order around here. Because if you don't, there's not going to be a survivor in this town in a couple of days, Mac implored, his voice fraught with desperation. Surveying the room and those lingering just outside, all eyes fixed on him for guidance, Tatum deliberated, wondering what Charlie would have decided in this situation. He knew Charlie hailed from St. Mary's, just like several of the men and their families. Locking eyes with each man, Tatum sensed their silent plea for action, their readiness to assist. With a nod of affirmation, he seized the receiver. What's the situation near your store? Tatum inquired. I'm there now, and there's some activity, but thankfully the school is on the other side of town. I've sold a lot of guns to the people of this town over the years, and I can hear them going off in the distance. I don't know how long their ammo is going to hold out, though. Once their guns go silent, those things might start wandering through town, Mac reported. Okay, we're going to come to you then, Tatum resolved decisively. You get to the back door when you get here. I have a fenced-in area with a remote gate. We can keep those things at bay while we load up for whatever we need to do, Mac instructed. We'll be there in 30, Tatum confirmed. All right, I'll be ready. If you got a radio, I'll be on channel 6, Mac informed them. We'll let you know when we're close. Tatum out. Setting the receiver down, Tatum faced the assembled men, noting their unanimous nods of agreement. Okay, I want a full loadout. Rifle, sidearm, as much ammunition as you can carry. 2 trucks, and I want 1,000 extra rounds in each, he commanded, his tone authoritative. Explosives? Devin inquired. No, we don't have a lot of those to spare. I want to save those for a rainy day, Tatum replied. How many men do you want? Reed questioned. Just the 6 of us, Tatum declared. The group exchanged glances, clearly perplexed by the seemingly understaffed plan. Yeah, I know, but our main priority is to secure this compound. With us leaving, that is a 3-to-1 civilian to trained personnel ratio. I'm not risking more than that. Because if this goes bad, our families are going to need help riding this thing out, Tatum explained. The men nodded in understanding and agreement. Okay, let's get loaded up. We're out in 10. Let's move like we have a purpose, Tatum directed. The men nodded once more before dispersing, except for Reed, who remained, concern etched on his face as he regarded his friend. Have you figured out what you're going to tell Maggie? Reed asked softly. It doesn't matter, because anything involving me going outside these walls is going to be met with protest, Tatum responded, a wry smile tugging at the corners of his lips. I can give you some backup if you need it, Reed offered. I'm more afraid of her than those things, so if I can walk away unscathed, I'm good for the day, Tatum quipped. Reed's smile persisted as he shook his head in amusement, watching Tatum rise from his seat. Together, they exited the room, Tatum leading the way toward the mess hall where Maggie awaited. However, before Tatum could even approach the door, Maggie emerged with a fiery determination in her eyes. No, the hell you are not, she declared, her voice filled with indignation. Man, word travels fast in this place, Tatum remarked. I saw those boys leave your little radio room and make a beeline for the armory. I'm not stupid, you know, Maggie retorted sharply. I know, Maggie. But if we don't go, a lot of people are going to die. They need our help, Tatum reasoned. We need your help. The people in this compound. They're all looking to you, Maggie countered, her voice tinged with concern. And how do you think they'd look at me knowing I was a coward and didn't go help people in need? Do you think they'd have any faith in my leadership? Would you? Tatum challenged. Maggie faltered, uncertainty flickering in her expression. It's not our fight. Let the government help them out, she insisted. They're not going to, Tatum asserted, his tone heavy with resignation. Maggie furrowed her brow in confusion. What are you talking about? There's a base up in Spokane. And they cut bait and ran. We're on our own. And if we don't go help those people, nobody else will, Tatum disclosed solemnly. Maggie contemplated for a moment before finally conceding with a nod of agreement. Okay, wow. We're on our own, she remarked, a mixture of disbelief and acceptance evident in her tone. Despite herself, Maggie chuckled softly, shaking her head in bemusement. I shouldn't be surprised, but somehow I still am, she admitted. I have to go get geared up, Tatum interjected. Maggie instinctively reached out, enveloping him in a tight embrace. Her arms clung to him, emotions swirling within her. Memories of past deployments flooded her mind, a rush of anxiety and fear gripping her heart. A sentiment Tatum could keenly perceive. I'm just going down the road a few miles, Maggie. I'm not going overseas, he reassured her, sensing her apprehension. I know, but it feels like this is a lot more dangerous, Maggie confessed, her voice laced with worry. I'll be careful, I promise, Tatum vowed earnestly, his words a soothing balm to her fears. Maggie nodded in acknowledgement as she reluctantly released him. Tatum leaned down, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead before making his way to the armory to prepare for the mission ahead. Chapter 3. Tatum, Eric, and Reed surged ahead in the lead vehicle, racing down the driveway towards St. Mary's, a mere 5 miles to the south. Frank, Edgar, and Devin followed closely behind in both SUVs, their cargo filled with weapons and assorted gear. Although the snow had ceased, a light dusting lent an ethereal beauty to the landscape. Eric seized a moment to gaze out the window, his eyes tracing the snow-covered trees just before the river that marked the boundary between wilderness and civilization. Do you know where the gun shop is? Eric's voice broke the silence, directed at Tatum. I know it's somewhere downtown, right? Tatum replied. Yeah, just get over the bridge, hang a right. I'll tell you where to turn after that, Eric instructed. Nodding, Tatum slowed the vehicle as the bridge loomed into view. As they approached, everyone in the lead vehicle leaned forward, their curiosity piqued. Good Lord, what the hell is going on? Reed exclaimed. Their attention turned to the bridge, where a solitary car lay wrecked against the side railing, besieged by a dozen zombies clamoring to gain entry. I need a scope, Tatum requested, prompting Reed to swiftly detach the scope from his rifle and pass it forward. Peering through the scope, Tatum's heart sank as he spotted survivors trapped inside the car. Damn, he muttered under his breath. What is it? Eric inquired, his voice tinged with apprehension. There are people in that car, Tatum said. Eric swiftly readied his rifle, his movements purposeful as he reached for the sunroof button positioned at the center of the roof. Just get me up close to them, I'll take it from there, Eric directed with determination. Tatum acknowledged with a nod, waiting until Eric had positioned himself through the sunroof. As the vehicle resumed its forward motion, Eric encountered a slight slip but quickly regained his footing. Pulling the SUV alongside the stranded car, Tatum revved the engine, drawing the attention of several nearby creatures. With precision, he aimed the front grille toward the approaching threats and slammed on the brakes, the impact sending the zombies hurtling back to the pavement. Eric wasted no time, unleashing a barrage of gunfire as soon as the vehicle came to a halt. Each squeeze of the trigger found its mark, a headshot with deadly accuracy, swiftly neutralizing the immediate threat. Rolling down the window, Tatum leaned out, his gaze meeting that of the frightened driver who mirrored his action. It was a young man, barely 20, his expression fraught with fear. Thank you so much. We were trying to get out of town, and those things drove us off the road. The driver expressed his gratitude, his voice trembling with relief. Is everybody okay in there? Tatum inquired. The driver nodded, gesturing for the others in the car to lean closer to the windows. 3 more young faces, similar in age, peered out, their eyes wide with fear. We're good, sir. Just scared out of our minds and trying to get someplace safe, the driver assured. Is anybody sick or injured? Tatum pressed further. Nobody's injured, the driver responded, but Tatum persisted. I asked if anybody was sick. The driver's confusion was palpable, his gaze fixed on Tatum with a hint of bewilderment. It's a simple question, son. If you want our help, you'd be wise to answer it, Tatum insisted firmly. No, sir, none of us are sick. But why would that matter? The driver questioned. Because that illness that's going around is what's causing all of this, Tatum explained, his voice grave with the weight of the truth. For a moment, the driver sat in silence, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place in his mind. Suddenly, clarity washed over him like a beacon in the darkness, and he began to shake his head in disbelief. Definitely none of us are sick like that. We don't have any bites either, the driver affirmed. Tatum hesitated, unsure of how to respond to this unexpected revelation. That's good to know, he offered tentatively, his uncertainty evident. So you haven't seen it firsthand then? The driver probed further. Seen what? Tatum inquired, his curiosity piqued by the driver's cryptic remark. Those bites do funny things, sir, the driver explained, gesturing toward the fallen zombies scattered on the ground. Tatum followed the driver's gaze, noting the telltale bite marks adorning the creatures' bodies. It didn't take long for the realization to sink in. We'll add that to the list of problems then, Tatum conceded, his mind racing with the implications of this new information. Where should we go, sir? This town isn't safe, and we're not from the area, so we don't know what to do, the driver implored. Tatum sank back into his seat, mulling over the decision for a moment before turning his gaze back out the window. Go straight up this road for exactly 4.8 miles. You'll see a driveway on the right side that cuts through the woods. You'll know you're in the right place when you see a streetlight just above it. When you get to our compound, tell the guard that the password is Rosebud, and that I personally sent you. They'll get you squared away until we get this situation under control," Tatum instructed with a tone of authority, his words laden with reassurance. The driver nodded fervently, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you so much, sir." "We'll be on our way," he responded earnestly. "Drive safe," Tatum urged, watching as the car pulled away before resuming their own journey. As Tatum navigated the road, making the turn as Eric had directed, he felt Reed's gaze on him, a hint of concern reflected in his expression. "Go ahead and spit it out, Reed," Tatum invited, sensing the unspoken question lingering between them. "You sent them to the compound?" Reed's voice betrayed his disbelief. "Yep," Tatum confirmed without hesitation. "Why in the world would you do that?" Reed pressed. "Because if we're going to help people, we're going to really help people," Tatum replied resolutely, his conviction unwavering. Reed gave him a solid nod, showing a bit of pride in his friend and new leader. Tatum, with determined focus, continued to navigate the streets, stealing glances at Eric through the rearview mirror. "Where am I going?" Tatum asked. "3 blocks up and make a left. It'll be down 2 blocks on the right," Eric directed. Tatum nodded, pressing down on the accelerator. Their progress was soon impeded by the sight of zombies roaming the area. Several of the undead creatures, sensing the approaching caravan, turned and ran toward them. When they made the turn towards the gun store, trouble loomed directly ahead. 30 of those grotesque creatures stood between them and their destination. "Hang on," Tatum warned. Tatum floored the accelerator, hurtling towards the rampaging dead. Just before reaching them, he made a sudden, sharp turn to the left, veering onto the sidewalk. Trash cans and store signs scattered as the SUV collided with them, the impact preferable to the alternative of bodies hitting the vehicle. Glancing in his rearview mirror, Tatum noted that the other vehicle was keeping pace. As they cleared the mob, he swerved back onto the road, knocking several creatures to the ground in the process. As they continued their adrenaline-fueled journey, Reed grabbed a radio and began shouting into it. "Hey Mac, we're a couple of blocks away and coming in hot," Reed relayed urgently. "Copy that." "I got you covered." Mac's reassuring voice crackled over the radio in response. Reed stowed the radio away before casting a glance over to Tatum. "No clue what that means, but he's a bit of a maniac. Just so you're aware," Reed remarked with a hint of amusement. "Sounds like my kind of guy," Tatum replied. Tatum maintained his speed down the street, creating a slight buffer between them and the pursuing zombies, but never more than half a block. Spotting the gun store on the corner, Tatum eased off the gas to prepare for the turn into the back. As they maneuvered down the alleyway, their eyes fell upon the fenced-in delivery area to their right. Approaching the gate, they watched as it sluggishly began to open, the process taking a painstaking 30 seconds to reach full openness. Both SUVs wasted no time pulling into the lot, the gate starting to slide shut behind them. Everyone in the vehicle glanced back, witnessing nearly a dozen creatures managing to slip inside before the gate sealed the rest off. "Okay, Eric, get up through the sunroof and," Tatum began, his sentence cut short by the sudden eruption of gunfire above them. The sound of a high-powered rifle firing in rapid succession echoed through the air, causing everyone to flinch. Peering outside, they saw Mac standing on the roof, unleashing rounds from a solid gold assault rifle. With each trigger pull, Mac's oversized belly jiggled, his bald head adorned with a widening grin. "Told you," Reed remarked with a chuckle. All Tatum could do was laugh, shaking his head in amusement and motioning for Eric to sit back down. "Let the man have his fun," Tatum remarked. The group sat in the vehicles, transfixed as Mac unloaded a full magazine into the group of zombies by the vehicles, strategically using the last few rounds towards the ones at the gate. Tatum glanced back and observed that virtually every shot found its mark. "He can shoot, that's for certain," Tatum remarked. "I mean, he does own a gun store," Eric quipped in response. "My dad owned a grocery store, but the only thing the man knew how to cook was burnt toast," Tatum joked, eliciting laughter from the cab. The laughter subsided as the gunfire outside died down, replaced by a loud whistle. The men exited the vehicles and looked up to see Mac standing on the roof, his grin so wide they could count his teeth from a distance. "You boys get in the store. I'll be right down. Help yourself to whatever you need," Mac called out to them. Tatum gestured for the men to follow, leading them inside. "Do we need anything, Tatum?" Edgar inquired. "Did anybody bring a shotgun?" Tatum questioned. "No, just rifles and sidearms," Edgar replied. "Get us a couple of shotguns with some solid slugs. We might come across a door that needs to be unlocked," Tatum instructed. Edgar nodded and hurried off to fulfill the request. Meanwhile, Mac emerged from the side of the room, still carrying his golden rifle and sporting a grin that seemed permanently etched onto his face. He extended a hand to Tatum, who accepted the handshake. "The name's Mac. You must be Tatum," Mac said with enthusiasm. "I am indeed. It's a pleasure to meet you," Tatum replied warmly. "Charlie told me a lot about you." "I'm looking forward to seeing if you live up to the hype," Mac remarked. "I'll do my best." "So what do you have in mind?" Tatum inquired. Mac gestured for them to gather around the checkout counter, where he had spread out a map of the town with several locations marked. The most prominent mark was a giant red X on the other side of town. "I'm going to assume this is the school," Tatum surmised. "It is, and I'm afraid that in my haste, I marked it out prematurely," Mac confessed. "Prematurely? What do you mean?" "I thought it was overrun," Tatum questioned. "Oh, it very much is, but I got a call from one of the people inside. Seems as though there's a few classrooms with survivors in them," Mac explained. "Survivors? How many?" Tatum inquired. "No clue, but it's enough to demand our attention," Mac admitted. "No doubt. How do we want to play it?" Reed interjected. "We need a team to go up there, assess the situation, and figure out a way to get them to safety," Tatum proposed. "Are you still in touch with them?" Frank asked Mac. "I got their number on my phone. Last time I checked, the lines were still up," Mac confirmed. "Good. Call them back, let them know that help is on the way, and to stay put. We also need to know where they are, and if anybody is bitten, to isolate them," Tatum directed. "Bitten?" Mac echoed, seeking clarification. "Yeah, bitten," Tatum affirmed. Tatum didn't elaborate, but Mac caught on quickly. He nodded in understanding as he reached for his phone to make the call. "Even if we can get to them, where do we take them?" Devin asked. "If we do this right, we won't have to take them anywhere. We'll just pull those things away from them," Tatum explained confidently. "So where are we pulling those things to?" Edgar inquired. "Right here," Tatum declared. Confusion spread among the group until Tatum gestured towards the walls and aisles of weapons. "We can get up to the roof and turn this into our own little Alamo," Tatum proposed. "Can we pick something other than the Alamo?" Frank suggested. "You're not a big history buff, are you, Frank?" Reed teased. "I am. That's why I don't want to be at the Alamo," Frank retorted, with a hint of humor in his tone. The group took a moment to mull over their plan before bursting into laughter. "Our completely impregnable fortress, then," Tatum suggested with a grin. "I can live with that," Frank replied, joining in the laughter. "I'll take a team up to the school," Edgar volunteered. "I'm in," Devin chimed in. "Frank, go with them," Reed instructed. "You want me to go?" "Why?" Frank questioned. "Because I've seen you shoot," Reed replied with a knowing look. "Yeah, fair enough," Frank conceded with a chuckle. "Okay, get geared up and over to that school. Radio in before you make a move," Tatum directed. The three men nodded before grabbing their gear and heading back out to the vehicles. As they did, Mac returned. "Okay, there are 4 classrooms with people. They've isolated the bitten individuals, and the classrooms are spread out throughout the school. They said it won't be hard to find because those things are swarming around them inside and out. Mac relayed the information. Copy that. We'll let you know when we have a visual, Frank confirmed. If they're heading there, what are we going to do? Mac inquired. We're going to get up to the roof and prepare for a shooting gallery, Frank declared. Mac's eyes widened with excitement as he hurried off to collect ammunition. Tatum gave his strike team a nod of approval as they set off towards the school, ready to execute their plan. Chapter 4. Frank gripped the steering wheel of the SUV tightly, his focus unwavering as Edgar and Devin checked their assault rifles. With a sense of urgency propelling them forward, they raced down the street toward the school, fully aware of the daunting challenge awaiting them. Approaching the school, Frank veered into a neighborhood situated across the main road. Within this residential area, scattered zombies roamed, their futile attempts to breach houses evident. Slowly traversing the streets, the trio surveyed the scene, taking in the sight of terrified individuals peeking out from their homes. With silent reassurance, they motioned for the residents to remain indoors, offering a hopeful thumbs up. Navigating to the neighborhood's edge, Frank positioned the vehicle to afford them a clear view of the school ahead. Well, that's a shit show, Devin remarked. The school appeared rather modest in size, spanning perhaps 150 yards from end to end, its prominent feature being a spacious gym located at the farthest point. From their vantage point, they observed the gym's doors standing wide open, with creatures wandering about. Along the front of the building, their eyes caught sight of two sizable gatherings of zombies, totaling at least a couple of hundred, all in a frenzied attempt to breach the classrooms. Only two. If Mac is right, there's two more, just like it on the other side of the school, Edgar remarked. Well, there's three of us. We should be able to thin them out a good deal before they reach us, Devin countered optimistically. And then what? Only one of us can fit through the sunroof, and with as many of those things as there are, there's a good chance they can flip us over, Edgar pointed out. We can go at it on foot, get into the classroom and pick them off from the inside? Devin suggested. How the hell did you ever survive being deployed? Edgar questioned incredulously. I don't mean all of us, just one of us. Get inside the school, barricade the door, and start popping off from the inside out. Take a closer look at the windows, Devin elaborated. Edgar peered through his scope toward the school, noting that the windows were conveniently positioned at head height for the majority of the zombies, and none of them seemed inclined to reach up to pull themselves inside. That might just be crazy enough to work, Edgar mused. Check out the door on this side of the school. It's shut, and none of those things are within 50 yards of it, Devin suggested. None that we can see. We don't know what's on the other side, Frank interjected cautiously. Which is why I want to get in there. I can set up in the classroom on the other side and take those things out without us risking being overrun if we try and drive it, since there's no good route for us to be able to see from a distance, Devin explained. Both Frank and Edgar exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging Devin's reasoning. Besides, both of the classrooms where the people are hiding are close to the gym. If this thing broke out there, I can't imagine them being too picky about where their refuge was, Devin added. You sound like you're raring to go there, Devin, Edgar remarked. I can get there and get inside, and take out a lot of those things from inside, Devin affirmed confidently. What if you can't pull them all away? Edgar inquired. That's where you come in. I'll get as many down my way as I can, and you pull the rest back towards the Alamo. Oops, sorry. The impregnable fortress, Devin responded, catching himself mid-sentence. Thank you, Frank said. My pleasure, Devin replied with a grin. It's a solid plan. Unless you've got something better? Frank inquired. My only concern is, how are you getting into the building? Those doors are most likely locked, Edgar pointed out. Devin raised the auto-feed shotgun with a grin. In my spare time, I'm also a locksmith, he quipped, eliciting chuckles from Frank and a disbelieving shake of the head from Edgar. Just get the gear you need, Edgar conceded. Devin proceeded to gather ammunition, swiftly preparing for their mission. He then tapped Frank on the shoulder, signaling for his attention. "Okay, Frank, I want you to get across the street. As soon as we hit the parking lot, I want you to let me out, then tear up the front of the building. When you get halfway up, start honking your horn to pull those things away back towards the shop," Devin instructed. "You got a radio, right?" Edgar confirmed. "Yep. I'll let you know how things are going inside too once it calms down," Devin affirmed. "Okay, we got a plan," Frank acknowledged, pulling out his radio to communicate with the other. "Tatum, do you copy?" Frank radioed. "What's the situation, Frank?" Tatum's voice crackled through the radio. "We're going to be pulling those things back your way soon. If you happen to have a way to keep them there as we drive past, that would be fantastic," Frank relayed. "We're already getting that set up. We'll be ready for you," Tatum responded confidently. Frank set the radio down, exchanging a thumbs up with Devin as they prepared to execute their plan. "Here we go," Frank announced, pushing this SUV to its limits as they raced toward the school. The vehicle swiftly exited the neighborhood and approached the school parking lot. Frank slammed on the brakes upon arrival, allowing Devin to leap out with his weapons ready. Devin wasted no time, sprinting towards the school with his rifle at the ready and shotgun slung over his shoulder. Meanwhile, Frank accelerated, speeding along the front edge of the school. As they approached, a few zombies noticed their presence and began to give chase. Frank laid on the horn, prompting dozens more to join the pursuit. Both men watched as the horde of zombies bore down on them. Frank expertly maneuvered the vehicle, sharply turning to the right while continuing to sound the horn, attracting even more creatures in their direction. Despite a momentary spin out, they quickly regained traction, Edgar observing a significant portion of the horde hot on their trail through the rearview mirror. "Looks like we're popular," Edgar quipped, sharing a smirk with Frank as they sped back towards their allies. Meanwhile, Devin raced towards the school, his focus unwavering as he closed in on the door. As he approached within 20 yards of the entrance, 3 zombies emerged from around the corner, one of which immediately locked eyes with him. Without hesitation, Devin raised his rifle and fired, dispatching the ghoul with a well-placed shot to the head. The other 2 zombies turned their focus to him, rushing forward with alarming speed. Devin calmly pumped several more rounds in their direction, each bullet finding its mark and ending the threat with precision. Aware that time was now a scarce commodity, Devin swiftly exchanged his rifle for his shotgun, his senses sharply attuned to any potential threats lurking around the building's corner. As he approached the door, a chorus of moans and shuffling footsteps echoed from the building's rear. Without hesitation, he trained his aim on the door's locking mechanism and discharged a single round, obliterating it in a cascade of destruction. With his shotgun now aimed towards the building's rear, Devin braced himself as a creature lurched into view. Before the zombie could react, a well-placed shot from Devin transformed it into a swirling crimson mist. Seizing the moment, Devin yanked the door open and charged inside, only to be accosted by a zombie lunging for his throat, its decaying fingers clawing at his shirt. Reacting instinctively, he thrust his weapon upward into the ghoul's chest and squeezed the trigger. The resulting impact tore through the creature's upper body, reducing it to a grisly mess. Though not a fatal shot, it was enough to free Devin from its grasp. Surveying the hallway ahead, Devin spotted a horde of creatures hurtling towards him, still some distance away, but rapidly closing the gap. "Hope one of these doors are unlocked," he muttered, his voice laced with urgency. Devin hurried to the nearest classroom door, twisting the knob in anticipation only to find it stubbornly locked. Anticipating a similar fate with the adjacent door, he aimed his shotgun beside the knob, unleashing a blast that tore through the wood, creating a makeshift opening. With deft fingers, he groped for the knob, finally wrenching it open and darting inside, just as a swarm of zombies closed in from all angles. As he slammed the door shut, a persistent undead limb thrust itself into the narrowing gap, the door's edge clashing against the creature's knee. Without hesitation, Devin pressed the shotgun against the intruding thigh and pulled the trigger, the resulting blast severing the limb with a sickening crack. Quickly disposing of the detached appendage, Devin secured the door, his momentary relief shattered by the clamor of zombies assaulting the windows and door. Holding his shotgun poised for action, he braced himself for a potential breach. Yet, as moments stretched into tense silence, it became evident that the door would hold. Relaxing slightly, Devin surveyed the eerie stillness of the classroom, the desks arranged in pristine rows as if untouched by time since the last bell rang. However, the tranquility was short-lived as the onslaught on the windows intensified, snapping him back to the present reality. Grim determination etched on his face. Devin laid down his shotgun on a nearby desk along with a spare bag of ammunition, opting for his rifle. With practiced ease, he inspected the weapon before turning his focus back to the encroaching horde. "I almost feel like I'm cheating at a carnival game," he remarked wryly. "Shoot the creature in the head, only from 2 feet away." Devin strode purposefully to the far end of the windows, his gaze sweeping over the hordes of undead pressed against the glass, their numbers seemingly endless. With a heavy heart, he raised his rifle, aligning his sights with the first figure in his line of fire. However, as he lingered on the face before him, a pang of empathy pierced his resolve. It was a young woman, chunks of flesh missing from her face and neck, her features frozen in an eternal hunger. Lowering the rifle momentarily, Devin let his emotions get the better of him, thinking about the poor woman on the other side of the glass. He shook it off and raised his rifle again. "You got a job to do, so do it," he muttered. With a deep breath, he squeezed the trigger, the report of the gunshot shattering the silence as the round found its mark, ending the creature's existence in a burst of crimson. Without pause, Devin methodically moved down the line, each shot a grim testament to the merciless reality of his situation. One by one, he dispatched the undead assailants, his movements driven by necessity rather than emotion. Chapter 5. Frank navigated the SUV down the winding street, putting distance between them and the school, all the while Edgar remained vigilant, keeping an eye on the approaching mob. The relentless horde of zombies pursued them, their numbers easily reaching 100, their eerie persistence evident as they managed to maintain a distance of just 20 yards from the vehicle. Aware of the delicate balance between drawing the zombies close and giving them room to operate, Frank opted not to speed too far ahead. He aimed to string out as many of the undead as possible. Meanwhile, Edgar reached for the radio, his voice crackling through the static. "Hey Tatum, we're 3 blocks away, and we've got 100 of those things tailing us." Silence greeted Edgar's call, prompting him to repeat his message. "Tatum, do you copy? We're just up the road and we've got company." But still, there was no response. Frank rolled down his window slightly, allowing in the distant strains of a classic rock tune, though he couldn't quite place the song. Beneath the music, the staccato rhythm of gunfire echoed through the air, a disconcerting backdrop to their situation. "Shit, something's not right," Frank muttered, his instincts tingling with apprehension. Edgar instinctively reached up and popped open the sunroof, his hands already gripping the rifle as he prepared for what lay ahead. Meanwhile, Frank swiftly unlatched the holster securing his handgun, ensuring quick access to his weapon as the situation demanded. As they rounded the corner, the sight that greeted them forced Frank to slam on the brakes. A mass of several hundred zombies swarmed the road, converging around the gun shop ahead. Their attention was fixated on the building, drawn by some unseen force within. With a quick glance upwards, they spotted the 4 men positioned on the roof, valiantly fending off the advancing horde. Despite their efforts, it seemed for every zombie they dispatched, another quickly took its place, swelling the ranks of the relentless mob. "I'm going up top," Edgar declared, ready to join the fray. "No." Frank's voice cut through the urgency, his decision made in an instant. Without hesitation, he floored the gas pedal and sharply maneuvered the wheel, aiming to skirt past the encroaching horde and reach the side street adjacent to the store. The SUV plowed through the outskirts of the crowd, the impact jolting both Edgar and Frank, but thankfully avoiding trapping any of the undead beneath its wheels. As they raced down the side street, Edgar cast a worried glance behind them, witnessing the chilling sight of the zombies that had been tailing them merging with the throng at the store. What the hell are you doing? Edgar's disbelief was palpable. They need our help. Frank's expression was grim, his eyes fixed on the road ahead as he spoke with determined resolve. Which is exactly what I'm doing. We're no good to them surrounded by those things. We'd be a liability in need of rescue. Edgar nodded in agreement, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily upon them as the crackle of the radio suddenly filled the tense air. "Frank, you guys there?" Tatum's voice crackled through the static. "Yeah, we're here, Tatum. What the hell is going on?" Edgar responded. "We cranked up the radio, hoping to distract those guys you're bringing us," Tatum explained. "Looks like you got more than you bargained for," Edgar remarked wryly. "Yeah, no kidding. That music barely lasted 20 seconds before we started drawing a crowd. We got onto the roof, and within a minute, there were 100 of those things," Tatum recounted. "Well, that's something at least, keeping them all in one place. Should make for easy pickings," Edgar replied. "True, but the ones that broke into the store, that's a whole different story," Tatum admitted grimly. "Holy hell, they're inside the store?" Edgar asked. "Yeah, the front window didn't hold up as long as we hoped under the pressure," Tatum confirmed, his voice tinged with frustration. "Is everyone okay?" Edgar asked. "We're fine for now, but we're stuck until we clear this mess," Tatum responded. "What do you need us to do?" Edgar asked. "What's the situation at the school?" Tatum inquired. "Devin managed to get inside and is taking out some of them from a classroom. We're not sure how many are in there, though," Edgar reported. "Get back and help him. Once you've got that situation under control, we'll be ready for assistance," Tatum instructed. "Copy that," Edgar acknowledged. Edgar set the radio aside, and Frank maneuvered the SUV onto the now deserted side street, veering a few blocks away from the bustling main road before looping back toward the school. Along the residential stretch, they passed several homes left gaping and seemingly abandoned. However, their attention was drawn to a particular scene as they approached the next block. A young child, no older than 10, burst out from one of the houses, frantically waving and shouting. "Holy shit." Frank's exclamation punctuated the moment as he slammed on the brakes, halting their vehicle. Without a word exchanged, both men swiftly exited the vehicle, brandishing their weapons as they hastened toward the distressed boy. "What are you doing out here, kid?" Frank's concern was evident in his tone as he questioned the child. "I don't think my mom and dad are well," the boy replied, his voice trembling with fear. Frank and Edgar exchanged a worried glance. "What do we do?" Frank turned to Edgar, seeking guidance. After a brief contemplation, Edgar let out a heavy sigh. "Let's put him in the car and lock him up tight. Then we'll—" Edgar's words trailed off, but Frank grasped the unspoken implication. Taking a knee to meet the child's eye level, Frank spoke gently. "Okay, my friend Edgar and I are going to go help your mommy and daddy feel better. But I need you to do something for me. Can you do that?" Despite his distress, tears streaming down his face, the boy nodded in agreement. "Okay, what do I do?" His voice quivered with uncertainty. Frank rose to his feet and guided the child over to the vehicle, opening the door and settling him into the back seat. "I just want you to sit here for a few minutes. Can you do that for me?" Frank's gentle request elicited a hesitant nod from the child, prompting a reassuring smile from Frank. "Okay, good. Edgar and I will be right back." With a final nod from the child, Frank gently closed the door and secured it with the fob. Turning their attention back to the task at hand, they approached the house, their senses alert for any potential threats. Despite their proximity to the gun shop a few blocks away, where the sound of gunfire persisted, they maintained their focus as they reached the wide-open front door of the house. Edgar took the lead, swiftly clearing the living room before signaling for Frank to cover the opposite direction toward the kitchen. Navigating cautiously through the house, they both directed their attention to the source of loud banging echoing from the back bedroom. Moving methodically down the hallway, they positioned themselves strategically against the walls, preparing for any potential threat. With each step, the intensity of the banging increased, but they pressed on, closing the distance until they were just yards away from the bedroom door. As the floorboards creaked beneath their weight, the wooden door began to give way under the force of whatever was inside. With a crack, the flimsy door splintered, swinging open to reveal two figures lurking within. Unmistakably, the dreaded undead. Without hesitation, both men pulled their triggers, dispatching a round into each of the zombies' heads, causing them to collapse to the floor. Standing there, their muscles taut with tension, they remained on high alert, waiting for any sign of further danger lurking in the room. After a brief moment passed, confirming that the threat had indeed been eliminated, they allowed themselves to relax. Moving cautiously, the pair approached the door, pushing it open to survey the aftermath. Their stomachs churned at the grisly scene that met their eyes. The bed was a grotesque tableau, drenched in blood, its walls adorned with splatters of crimson. Their gaze fell upon the couple lying amidst the carnage, appearing not much older than their 30s. The man's throat bore a gaping wound, a large chunk of flesh torn away, while the woman's lips were stained with blood, a fragment of flesh wedged between her teeth. "Damn, she went straight for his throat," Frank remarked, his voice laden with disbelief. "Yeah, it reminds me of my ex-wife," Edgar quipped dryly. "Figuratively, I hope," Frank retorted with a wry grin. Edgar adjusted his shirt collar, revealing a scar etched on his shoulder blade. "Ouch. That must have hurt like hell," Frank remarked sympathetically. "About half as bad as the divorce did," Edgar replied, a hint of bitterness lacing his tone. Frank couldn't suppress a smile, chuckling at Edgar's remark. Soon, both men found themselves laughing, the absurdity of their conversation providing a brief respite from the grim realities surrounding them. Their momentary reprieve was shattered by the blaring alarm of their SUV. "What the hell?" Edgar exclaimed. "Shit. The kid must have tried to get out," Frank surmised. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, both men dashed down the hallway toward the front of the house, the shrill sound of the alarm piercing the air and echoing through the neighborhood. Reaching the front door, they were met with a harrowing sight. Half a dozen creatures sprinting toward their SUV. The kid stood frozen, hands clamped over his ears to shield them from the deafening noise. Frank wasted no time, bellowing at him, "Shut the door." The kid's eyes widened as he caught sight of Frank's urgent gestures, promptly obeying and slamming the door shut just before the zombies reached it. With a quick press of a button on the fob, Frank silenced the blaring alarm, though the approaching horde of zombies remained an imminent threat. Realizing the perilous situation, Frank decided to take action, firing a shot that missed its mark but successfully diverted the zombies' attention toward him. The creatures surged toward the house, prompting both men to open fire. Their accuracy improved as the undead drew nearer, and they managed to bring down 2 of the ghouls before being forced to retreat indoors. Frank slammed the door shut, bracing his weight against it as 5 more ghouls closed in. The door strained against their relentless assault, its flimsy construction threatening to give way. "If I move, this door is going," Frank warned. Acknowledging the dire circumstances, Edgar sprang into action. He dashed to the window beside the door, seizing a small wooden end table and hurling it through the glass. Swiftly, he pulled down the blinds, creating a makeshift vantage point. Dropping to one knee, Edgar took aim, firing off rounds in rapid succession. 3 of the creatures fell under his precise shots, but 2 remained firmly pressed against the door, impeding his line of fire. "I can't get an angle," Edgar shouted in frustration. Frank dropped to the ground, maintaining pressure on the door even as he spoke. "Just shoot through the door," he directed urgently. Nodding in understanding, Edgar rose to his feet and positioned himself at the door, unleashing a barrage of rounds at roughly head level. The sudden gunfire subsided, leaving an eerie calm in its wake. Edgar glanced down at Frank, who slowly rose from his prone position against the door. "Did that work?" Edgar inquired, a note of uncertainty in his voice. Frank merely shrugged in response, gently pulling on the door, expecting it to be forcefully opened. Much to his relief, the enemy on the other side was motionless. Breathing a sigh of relief, both men ventured outside, their senses alert to every sound in the stillness of the air, punctuated only by distant music and sporadic gunshots. Their attention was suddenly drawn to movement in a house 3 doors down across the street. Reacting swiftly, they raised their weapons, ready to defend themselves, but quickly lowered them upon realizing it was an older woman approaching with raised hands. Frank hurried over to her side, while Edgar returned to the SUV to check on the kid. "It's not safe out here. Please stay in your home until we come and get you," Frank advised, his voice firm but reassuring. Concern etched on her features. The woman inquired, "The boy, is he all right?" Yeah, he's fine," Frank confirmed, offering a reassuring nod. Her gaze shifted. Her next question weighed with apprehension. "And his parents?" Frank paused, grappling with the weight of the woman's question, uncertain of how to answer. Unable to find the right words, he simply fell silent. "Just tell me, did you do everything you could to save them?" The woman pressed, her tone gentle yet insistent. Not wishing to delve into the grim details of their ordeal, Frank offered a solemn nod in response. "Then that's all you could have done," the woman affirmed, her words carrying a sense of comfort amidst the tragedy. "Now, I assume you boys have work that needs to get done?" "We do," Frank confirmed. "Work that isn't going to be helped by having a 10-year-old kid along for the ride," the woman continued. Frank couldn't suppress a chuckle, shaking his head in agreement. "I don't believe he'd be of much use to us today." "Then give him to me. I'll watch after him," the woman offered kindly. Frank nodded appreciatively and motioned for Edgar to bring the kid over, which he promptly did. Kneeling down to the child's level, Frank addressed him gently. "I need you to go with this nice woman here. Can you do that for me?" The kid nodded, still visibly shaken, as the woman reached down and took him by the hand, speaking to him in soothing tones. "Do you like cookies, young man?" she asked, her voice warm and comforting. Though still in a state of shock, the kid managed a small nod. "Well, we're going to go bake some right now," the woman declared cheerfully. "I like chocolate chip," the kid murmured softly. "Then we'll make chocolate chip cookies," the woman promised, her words infused with a sense of reassurance and kindness. As they began walking back toward the house, Frank finally broke the silence. "Thank you, and please stay inside until we come and get you," he implored. The woman nodded in understanding as they continued on their way. Frank nudged Edgar on the arm, gesturing back toward the SUV. "Come on, we've got work to do." Chapter 6. Frank and Edgar maneuvered their vehicle back towards the school, finding the same spot they had parked in earlier. This time, however, the neighborhood was devoid of any zombies. They had all gravitated toward the school, lured by the sounds of gunfire from Devin's direction. With his window slightly ajar, Frank caught the distant echoes of gunfire. He reached for the radio, adjusting it to the appropriate channel. "Well, at least we know he's keeping busy," Frank remarked. Edgar nodded in agreement. "Sounds like it." "Hey Devin, you copy?" Frank's voice crackled through the radio. Another gunshot reverberated from the school before silence enveloped the airwaves. Moments later, Devin's voice crackled to life. "I was wondering when you guys would make your way back around here," Devin responded. "How's it going in there?" Frank inquired. "Burned through 5 mags worth of ammo already, and they're still lining up for their turn at the window," Devin reported. "Good Lord, I'm surprised that they're still able to get up to the window with that many bodies on the ground," Frank commented. "Luckily, I'm in a big classroom, so there's plenty of space for them to spread out. But, yeah, I was worried there for a few minutes," Devin explained. "Are you nearly done with them?" Frank pressed. "Oh yeah, well, the outside ones at any rate. I'm going to need some help with the inside ones," Devin admitted. How many are we looking at? Frank inquired further. More than I can handle is all I can tell you. I spotted a few dozen in the hallway, but I didn't have time to do a head count, Devin replied. Can you get out the window once you finish off the ones outside? Frank proposed. Probably, but I think it'd be better if I stayed in the classroom, Devin suggested. So you have a plan then? Frank probed. Yeah, but I don't think you're going to like it much, Devin warned. Kind of the way the day's going so far. What are you thinking? Frank asked. With as much as I've been popping off down here, most of those things should be outside my door. If you can get up by the gym and get inside, you should have a clean look at them, Devin said. Frank glanced at Edgar, seeking his opinion. What do you think? Frank asked. What the hell? We've come this far. Why not? Edgar replied nonchalantly. Okay, Devin, we're in. We'll let you know when we're in position, Frank informed Devin over the radio. No need. Just start shooting. I'm sure I'll hear you, Devin responded. Frank chuckled lightly. Okay, you got it. Putting the SUV into gear, Frank drove toward the school, heading along the front towards the gym. Despite the rumble of the engine, the ongoing gunfire held the attention of all nearby zombies. Stop the car, Edgar suddenly interjected. What is it? Frank inquired. Edgar pointed out the window towards the classroom nearest to the gym. The window was open, and someone inside was waving frantically at them. What do you say? Want to go find out how we can help? Frank proposed. Might as well, Edgar agreed. The duo parked the SUV, stepping out with weapons raised, scanning their surroundings for any potential threats. As they confirmed the absence of immediate danger on this side of the building, they advanced towards the classroom. Upon their arrival, one of the men inside opened the window fully. Peering inside, Frank and Edgar observed around 30 individuals, most appearing fatigued and frightened. Oh, thank God you're here. We heard your friend shooting for the last half hour or so, but it just kept going, the man inside exclaimed with relief. Yeah, he's mopping up those things that are on the other side of the building. We're here to help him clean up the inside, Frank reassured. What can we do to help? The man inquired eagerly. Sit tight and don't get in our way, Frank instructed firmly. And if you hear us knocking on the door, open it up for us, Edgar added. We can do that. The man agreed. How's everybody doing in there? Edgar asked, expressing concern. Scared, but we're hanging in, the man responded. Are you able to communicate with the other rooms? Edgar inquired further. Yeah, we're on a group chat together and the phones are still up, the man confirmed. Good. Let them know that we're entering the building and that there's going to be a lot more gunfire, Edgar instructed. And for them to let us in if we need it, Frank added. The man nodded in agreement as Frank and Edgar turned and made their way towards the gym entrance. As they approached the doors, the sounds of thrashing and frustrated moaning emanated from the other side. Edgar reached the door, his hand poised on the handle, waiting for Frank's signal. Upon receiving it, he pulled the door open, revealing a scene that evoked a mixture of pity and disbelief. Well, that's just about the saddest fucking thing I've seen today, Edgar remarked. Before them lay an elderly zombie, well into their 70s, flailing their arms about on the ground. Their legs appeared withered, and a toppled wheelchair lay just a few feet away. Talk about never having a chance, Frank muttered. With a swift motion, Frank withdrew his knife and stepped inside, driving it into the back of the creature's skull, mercifully ending its tortured existence. Both men then readied their rifles, cautiously moving towards the gym entrance and peering inside. The expansive space appeared entirely vacant, yet the signs of tragedy were unmistakable. Corpses littered the floor, blood staining every surface, particularly the doors, which were nearly coated in crimson. This is why it's important to elect intelligent people, Frank remarked. If that's the case, then this country is completely screwed, Edgar replied. Frank emitted a chilling chuckle, his horror evident as he shook his head and lightly smacked Edgar on the arm, urging him forward. The two men proceeded down the hallway, which stretched the entire length of the building. Positioned discreetly at the apex, they peered downwards toward the room housing Devon. Below, a horde of 50 creatures clamored in the corridor, desperate to breach Devon's sanctuary. "That's a hell of a lot of those things to handle. Once we open fire, we'll be swarmed," Edgar remarked. Frank surveyed the open expanse before them, noting the double doors forcibly flung open and braced against the wall. With determination, he stepped out, exerting every ounce of strength to dislodge the door from its fixture. Giving a nonchalant shrug, Frank caught Edgar's eye, prompting a nod of understanding. Together, they began pulling the doors partially shut. Positioned to open into the hallway, they remained unperturbed by the threat of intrusion. "Shall we?" Frank proposed. Edgar nodded in agreement, both men thrusting their rifles through the narrow gap in the door, fingers tensing on the triggers in near synchrony. Uncertain if their shots found their marks amidst the 100-yard distance, the gunfire successfully diverted the horde's attention. Standing their ground, they watched as a score of creatures charged towards them with relentless speed. When the undead assailants closed within 20 yards, Frank and Edgar unleashed a barrage of gunfire upon them. The bullets tore through the air, shattering skulls and impeding the advance of their adversaries. They managed to dispatch 9 before the threat loomed too close for comfort. With haste, they slammed the doors shut, only for Frank to realize his door failed to secure. It rebounded off the frame with a resounding clang, prompting him to swiftly grasp the release bar, pulling with all his might. "Probably should have tested that out first," Frank remarked wryly. "You think?" Edgar retorted, a hint of exasperation in his voice as he swiftly commandeered the radio from Frank's belt. "Devon, we have a situation brewing up here. We need you to start taking some out," Edgar urgently relayed over the radio. "I'm on it," came Devon's swift response. Devon discharged a couple more rounds through the windows, leaving a cluster of ghouls still standing. With calculated ease, he retrieved a shotgun resting on a nearby desk before making his way towards the door. Carefully aligning his aim, he dispatched a slug through the middle of the door, obliterating a zombie's skull. As another undead figure emerged, Devon swiftly transitioned to his rifle, methodically eliminating each threat that presented itself until a barricade of bodies prevented other creatures from getting in view. Despite the mounting pile of corpses and Edgar's increasingly frantic calls over the radio, the persistent sounds of the undead lingered outside. Devon replenished his shotgun with a fresh set of shells, a sense of trepidation mingling with excitement. "This is a bad idea, but I've always wanted to do this," Devon muttered to himself. Devon steadied his aim, aligning the barrel of his shotgun with the door at head level. He squeezed the trigger repeatedly, the deafening blasts echoing through the hallway as each slug tore through the wood, splintering it into fragments. Slug after slug pierced the door, carving out a massive hole spanning its entire length. Although most of his shots found their mark, a few creatures, too short to be hit, escaped unscathed. Undeterred, Devon switched to his rifle, advancing to point-blank range to dispatch the remaining creatures crowding his door. Methodically, he eliminated each one, employing a chair to elevate himself and reach the shorter assailants pressed against the door. Once the immediate threat was neutralized, Devon seized the radio, his voice calm yet resolute. "How are you guys looking up there?" he inquired. "Most of them took off towards you, but we still have a handful here," Edgar responded. "Okay, I'm going to be firing in your direction, so take cover," Devon instructed. "Copy that," Edgar acknowledged, bracing for the incoming barrage. Devon drew in a deep breath before swinging the door open, revealing a macabre pile of bodies strewn outside his classroom. Negotiating the grisly obstacle, he found solid footing before training his gaze up the hallway. With precise aim, he discharged a couple of shots, one finding its mark in a zombie's skull. The reverberating noise acted as a siren call, luring the remaining ghouls towards him. Undeterred, Devon held his ground, methodically picking off the advancing undead. With each shot, he dispatched his foes with lethal accuracy, leaving only 2 within close proximity. As his rifle clicked empty, he seamlessly transitioned to his handgun, discarding the spent weapon with practiced ease. As the first creature lunged towards him, Devin sidestepped and pushed it aside, swiftly closing the distance to the second one. He fired at point-blank range, hitting the creature in the head. He used the falling zombie as a shield to deflect the other's advances. With a deft maneuver, he sent a round through the last remaining ghoul, ending the threat. Releasing a resounding whistle, Devin signaled his comrades to emerge from cover. They approached, admiration evident in their expressions. "That's some damn fine work, Devin," Frank praised. "Not my first time in close combat," Devin replied, his tone understated yet confident. Edgar's heart skipped a beat as the clamor of zombies banging against the classroom windows startled him. "Why don't you go finish them off?" Devin suggested, his gaze fixed in a 1,000-yard stare. Edgar didn't argue with Devin, noticing the look on his face. Without a word, he turned and entered the classroom. "How's Tatum?" Devin inquired. "They're going to need our help," Frank replied. "Okay, let's tell the people to stay put. Then go lend a hand," Devin said. As Devin strode away, methodically reloading his weapons, Frank observed Edgar through the door, swiftly dispatching the last of the zombies. "I guess that's the plan then," Frank remarked. Chapter 7. The trio journeyed back toward the gun shop, still riding the adrenaline rush from their recent intense encounter. As they neared within half a mile, Edgar seized the radio. "Hey Tatum, how are we looking?" he inquired. "We still have about 100 of those things outside," Tatum responded, "but the good news is, they've stopped coming out of the woodwork." "And the bad news?" Edgar prompted. "The store is still jam-packed with them," Tatum explained, "so even if we clear this bunch out, we still need a way to take them out." "I assume a frontal assault isn't ideal," Edgar remarked. "Not unless you want to be the guest of honor at their next meal," Tatum quipped. "Can you hit them from above?" Edgar asked. "It's a store filled with stuff we're going to need, including stuff that goes boom," Tatum replied. "So we'd like to limit the amount of gunfire inside the store." "Fair enough. Any idea how many are inside?" Edgar inquired. "Best guess? 40? Maybe 50, Tatum estimated. "That's a hell of an issue," Edgar mused. "Tell me about it," Tatum agreed. At this point, Frank interjected, "Tell him I have an idea." Frank says he has an idea, Edgar relayed over the radio. There was a long pause on the radio before Tatum responded. Reed just let out an epic string of curses that included a few I've never heard before. But he ended it by saying to proceed. "What do you have in mind?" Frank halted the SUV a few blocks shy of their destination, leaning over to grab the radio. "Hey Tatum, I'm assuming that you guys can't get to the radio to shut it off?" Frank inquired. "Nope, controls are behind the counter, and we don't have a clean shot at any of the speakers," Tatum confirmed. "That shit is loud, so no matter what we find out here, we won't be able to pull them our way by being louder," Frank observed. "Still not hearing an idea," Tatum remarked. "I'm getting to it. Just wanted to make sure I understood the rules first. One more question. How big is the window that gave way?" Frank asked. "It's a huge plate glass window that takes up a quarter of the front of the building," Tatum described. "Perfect. We're going to go fishing for zombies," Frank declared. "I'm almost afraid to ask. But we trust you. Let us know when you're in position," Tatum replied. "Just need to make a pit stop first and we'll be there." "Frank out," Frank concluded, setting the radio down. His companions in the vehicle exchanged puzzled glances. "Fishing for zombies? Just what in the hell are you talking about?" Edgar queried. "Yeah, I'm with Edgar on this one. I'm lost," Devin admitted. Frank's sly smile widened as he gestured towards the building opposite them. The trio followed his gaze, finding themselves parked outside a sporting goods store. A display in the window showcased an array of fishing rods. "You mean literally fishing for zombies?" Edgar questioned incredulously. Well, maybe not with a fishing pole, but the concept is the same. Come on, Frank replied. Exiting the vehicle, the three cautiously approached the store, constantly scanning their surroundings for any signs of danger. Frank reached the door and rapped on it loudly. They waited, tension mounting, until they heard movement from inside. Suddenly, a zombie crashed into the door, desperately attempting to break free. After a moment's observation, they realized it was the sole occupant of the building. Frank nonchalantly drew his handgun, taking careful aim at the creature's head and firing. The bullet shattered the glass, weakening it enough for Frank to push through and unlock the door. Once inside, they remained vigilant, clearing the small store of potential threats. Okay, Frank, how are we fishing for zombies exactly? Edgar inquired, his curiosity piqued. Frank strode purposefully through the aisles, selecting high-tension climbing rope and tossing it into a nearby shopping cart. His companions, though puzzled, trailed behind him obediently. Leading them to the weapons display, Frank directed their attention to the assortment of hunting rifles, eliciting a disappointed sigh from both Edgar and Devin. So you want to shoot the zombies with rope? Edgar questioned incredulously. Yep, Frank confirmed. With rifles? Edgar pressed, confused. Frank, realizing his mistake, turned around to survey the display more carefully. He then pointed to the right, where a collection of hunting bows awaited. No, I'm not as stupid as you think I am. Look to the right, Frank clarified. Following his gaze, Edgar and Devin spotted the bows, their expressions shifting to understanding as they exchanged knowing smirks. So we're fishing for zombies, Devin concluded. It looks that way, Edgar agreed. Grab all the arrows you can and start tying the rope off to them, Frank instructed. I'll see if I can find a winch, unless you want to reel these things in by hand, Devin suggested. From what I've seen of these things, once they lay eyes on something they want, you won't have any issues getting them to you, Frank remarked. Yeah, good point, Devin acknowledged. We should be able to secure it inside the car anyway. Give them a tug and get them to us, Edgar proposed. The group devoted several minutes to preparing their zombie fishing expedition, fastening ropes to dozens of arrows and grabbing a handful of bows as backup. With their gear set, they made their way back to the SUV, communicating over the radio. We're on the way, Tatum. Are you ready for us? Edgar's voice crackled through the radio. We'll have them cleared by the time you get here. Hope you got something up your sleeve, Tatum responded. Yeah, hang tight. I think you're going to get a kick out of this, Edgar assured. As they approached the gun store, the music still blaring, the gunfire from above ceased. A mound of zombies blocked the road, stacked 2 or 3 deep. Hang on, fellas. We're going to have to go 4-wheel drive on this one, Frank declared. He nudged the vehicle forward, causing the trio to bounce around inside as it traversed the uneven, corpse-laden terrain. Finally, they reached their position in front of the store. With the SUV secured atop the pile of zombies, Frank opened the sunroof while Devin fastened a climbing rope to the back seat door handle. After ensuring it was secure, Devin positioned himself at the driver's side window, rifle at the ready. Here goes nothing, Frank muttered, bracing himself for what was to come. Frank stood tall through the sunroof, the booming music from inside the store reverberating through the air, rattling the windows with every bass hit. Peering through a broken window on the store's right side, he spotted several zombies fixated on a speaker in the corner. Okay, fishing for zombies, take 1, Frank announced, his voice determined. He secured an arrow in his bow, pulling it back and aiming at the closest zombie. With a steady hand, he released the arrow, its rope trailing behind it. The arrow flew with force, lodging into the creature's sternum. Despite the impact, the zombie remained fixated until Frank started to tug on the rope, drawing its attention. Frank jovially waved at the undead creature, which responded with a guttural moan before crashing into other zombies as it exited the store. Devin swiftly took aim, firing a kill shot before the creature could cross halfway across the street. As the other zombies it collided with noticed the commotion, they too rushed out of the store in succession. Devin took aim again, bringing down the first creature, but was surprised to see the heads of the others explode before he could shoot them. Confused, Devin looked up to the roof of the building, where Tatum, Mac, Reed, and Eric stood armed and ready. "I think this might actually work," Devin remarked, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "Find another one and get him out here," Edgar commanded. "Need another arrow," Frank requested. Devin secured another arrow to the car before passing it up to Frank. With practiced precision, Frank aimed at another zombie drawn to the speaker, its excitement evident as it approached. The arrow struck true, embedding itself in the creature's shoulder. With a single tug, Frank spun the zombie around, prompting a surge of its companions to follow it out of the window. Gunfire erupted, swiftly dispatching them before they could get close to the SUV. "Okay, another arrow. Let's keep this up," Frank called out, his determination unwavering. Over the next hour, Frank continued his zombie fishing expedition. While the easily accessible targets near the broken window were swiftly dispatched, coaxing the last few out of the store proved more challenging. Frank resorted to trick shots, knocking objects off shelves to draw them out. Finally, the last zombie inside the store ambled toward the window, presenting Frank with an opportunity for a skillful shot. With precision, he let the arrow fly, the projectile finding its mark in the creature's head, penetrating through the ear canal and into the brain. "That was a hell of a shot, Frank," Devin remarked, impressed by his friend's skill. "Benefits of spending my youth at summer camp instead of inside playing video games," Frank quipped. "Yeah, well, we all can't have perfect childhoods. Give me a controller in an air-conditioned room any day of the week," Devin replied with a chuckle. "If we can figure out how to keep the power on, you just might get your wish," Frank said. Devin chuckled as he exited the vehicle, swiftly making his way to the store for a quick sweep. From his vantage point atop the vehicle, he confirmed that the last creature had indeed been dealt with, but they needed to be absolutely sure. After several tense moments inside, he emerged and gave them a thumbs-up sign. "We're clear down here, Tatum," Edgar relayed over the radio. "We're on our way down." "Nice work," Tatum responded, his voice filled with appreciation. Frank discarded the bow onto the roof of the SUV, exhaling a sigh of relief. Edgar patted him on the leg, a silent acknowledgement of a job well done. Despite their success, Frank couldn't help but glance at the heap of creatures strewn across the street. They were dangerous and lethal, but he couldn't shake the thought that, not too long ago, they were just ordinary people like him. Pushing aside the unsettling image, Frank descended through the sunroof, ready to regroup with the others and push on with the day's tasks. There was still work to be done, and contemplating the horror in front of him wouldn't help them now. Chapter 8. Tatum lingered near the gun shop's counter, his gaze fixed on the map of the town spread out before him. Meanwhile, the rest of the group browsed through the remaining inventory, fully aware that these items would likely be their last finds for quite some time. "Okay, boys, I'm serious when I say this. Take whatever you need," Mac declared, his tone earnest. "Just try not to hurt an old man too badly and leave him defenseless." "Don't worry, Mac, we wouldn't do that to you," Reed reassured him. "I think we mostly burned through your ammo anyway." "Well, I still want to say thank you," Mac replied gratefully. "Say, any of you boys fancy sniping?" "Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of that," Devin chimed in. "You're the maniac that charged into the school, aren't you?" Mac asked, his tone curious. "Yes, I am," Devin confirmed with a hint of pride. "And I'll take maniac as a compliment." "You should." "Frankly, I'm surprised you could move that fast dragging that enormous sack behind you," Mac remarked, a chuckle in his voice. "What can I say? I don't skip leg day," Devin quipped. "Well, come here. I got something for you," Mac beckoned. Mac strolled around the counter, pressing a button discreetly tucked beneath the register. A loud buzzing sound reverberated through the shop, followed by a distinct clicking noise, signaling the release of a false door concealed behind one of the display walls. The men, excluding Tatum, clustered around the newly revealed compartment as Mac swung it open, unveiling an arsenal of heavy-duty weaponry. Among them were high-end rifles, a grenade launcher, and prominently positioned in the center, a .50 caliber sniper rifle. Devin's eyes sparkled with excitement, akin to a child on Christmas morning, as he laid eyes on the sniper rifle. Mac noticed his reaction and grinned, carefully retrieving the rifle and placing it on the counter. "Thought you might like that," Mac remarked. "I'm speechless," Devin breathed in awe. "Well, it's a good thing you have this then," Mac replied, his tone tinged with humor, "because it'll say anything you could ever want to say. Only from a distance, and to a person who won't have the ability to respond. Still, if they have friends nearby, they'll get your point." "Thank you so much, Mac," Devin expressed his gratitude sincerely. "Hey, it's my pleasure. You boys didn't have to come riding to our rescue, but by God you did," Mac said warmly. "And you have a town that will be forever in your debt. Well, part of a town at any rate." Devin picked up the rifle, preparing to move it, while Mac reached into the hidden compartment and retrieved several boxes of ammunition, packing them into a bag for him. "Now you boys don't be strangers around here." "You're welcome anytime," Mac said. As the others began to make their way out, Tatum remained fixated on the map of the town. "Hey Tatum, are you coming?" Reed called out. "We're not going anywhere yet. We still have work to do," Tatum replied firmly. "Don't worry, I can do the cleanup. Some of the locals will be happy to help," Mac offered. "I'm not worried about the cleanup. I'm worried about what comes next," Tatum clarified. "What are you talking about? We're the only town for miles in any direction," Mac reasoned. "I know, which makes it the perfect spot to set up shop," Tatum explained, prompting looks of perplexity from Mac and the others. "Tatum? We have the compound," Reed reminded him. "I know, and it's barely enough for us. If this is happening everywhere, it's only a matter of time before people start finding their way here. It's right on the highway, so it's not hard to find. Someone trying to flee Spokane could very easily end up here. We need to fortify this place," Tatum asserted. The group exchanged glances before following Tatum back into the building, gathering around the town map. Tatum pointed to specific areas as he continued to explain his plan. "We have the river protecting the northern flank, with only the bridge over it to worry about. That's easy enough to protect. The main thing is the highway running right through the center of town. We need to block it off in both directions, just outside the town limits," Tatum outlined. "With what?" "There's not exactly a lot of building material in town," Edgar pointed out. "No, but there is a junkyard on the western edge of town. Pretty big one, too. Most of the metal is rusted, but it'll still stop something in its tracks," Mac suggested. "Is the owner still with us?" Tatum inquired. "Oh yeah, crusty old bastard that will outlive us all. When we're done here, I'll set up a meet and greet," Mac assured him. "Looking forward to it," Tatum replied. "What about the airport on the other side of the river?" Mac questioned. "I'm not worried about it. You can only get small planes in and out. Most pilots probably don't even know it's there," Reed dismissed the concern. "Still, I want someone keeping an eye on it. If someone flies over and spots the barricades, they might get curious," Tatum insisted. "I can delegate that out to the townsfolk. There's surely some elderly people who would love nothing more than to snitch on people being where they're not supposed to be," Mac proposed with a wry smile. The group shared a moment of laughter, their spirits lightening as they refocused on the task at hand. "Pretty sure we can get that knocked out by sunup if we work through the night," Reed suggested optimistically. "No, go until sundown, then take up a defensive position. We don't want any mistakes out there," Tatum countered with a note of caution. Reed nodded in agreement. "Okay, Mac and I are going to head out to the junkyard with Reed to get that plan in motion. Frank, Edgar, head back over to the school and start doing a head count. Figure out how many we have and make sure they're secure for the night," Tatum instructed. "Do you want us to leave them there?" Frank inquired. "No, I want people in their homes. not at a place where their family and friends died. If you find capable people, put them to work. Every scrap of food needs to be pulled from the school and secured. Make sure everybody gets a good meal tonight, because tomorrow we're going on rations, Tatum clarified. That's going to be popular, Mac remarked. It's necessary. For lack of a better term, we're under siege conditions. There is no help coming. The supplies we have are all we're going to get for the foreseeable future. Nothing goes to waste, and come tomorrow, we're sending out hunting parties. And not just to keep an eye on those things, Tatum emphasized. There's pretty decent fishing in the river too, Mac added. And the store we borrowed the bow and arrows from had a nice selection of rods, Frank contributed. We need to add a census to the list then. Find somebody with a decent head on their shoulders and get them figuring out who we have left in this town. If they can hunt, fish, bake bread, grow a garden, anything that can help us ride this out, Tatum said. We need to know who they are and get them working. As everyone in the group nodded in agreement, Tatum took charge. Eric, go with Devin and get to the neighborhoods. Start going door to door, letting anybody who is smart enough to stay home know what's going on, Tatum directed. Be careful though. Some of those people who stayed home did so because they were sick. You might have some unwelcome company, Frank warned. Just keep track of those houses. We'll clear them later as a team. Right now we need to get everyone on the same page, Tatum instructed. We'll take care of it, Devin assured. Okay, we have about 5 hours of daylight left. Let's get this done, Tatum urged. Your boys can take your vehicles. You and Reed can ride with me up to the junkyard. I just need a minute and we can leave, Mac offered. Take your time, Mac. Do what you need to do, Tatum replied. Mac nodded as he walked away, while the rest of the teams headed out to tackle their missions. Tatum took a seat on a display, letting out a deep sigh. Reed walked over and joined him. Not a lot of fun being in charge, is it? Reed commented. I didn't like it when I was in the military, but I did it because it needed to be done. I don't like it now, Tatum admitted. But you'll do it because it needs to be done, Reed remarked. Yep. I will get it done, Tatum affirmed. And that's why Charlie put you as his second in command. I always thought he was going to put me in that position, but after seeing what you just did in there, I know he made the right choice. He'd be proud of you, Reed expressed sincerely. That means a lot to me, Reed, more than you know, Tatum replied gratefully. After a long pause, Reed spoke up again, breaking the silence. We're headed for some dark days, aren't we, Tatum? He remarked somberly. I'm afraid so. Every single thing I see, every scenario on how this plays out, none of it is good, Tatum responded with a heavy heart. Well, we certainly have the right man in charge to lead us through to the other side. I'm with you to the end, Reed declared, extending his fist for a bump before getting up. I'll let you know when Mac is ready to roll. You take your time, Reed said as he walked away. Tatum nodded in acknowledgement as he sat there for a moment, thoughts of his family flooding his mind. He knew he needed to do whatever he could to keep them safe, and that meant ensuring the safety of the people in this town. As he pondered, a terrifying thought crossed his mind, prompting a chuckle. Mental note, send a runner back to the compound to let Maggie know we're okay. If I don't, she's going to be the scariest thing I face out here. Tatum mused to himself, laughter bubbling up within him. Lost in thoughts of his loved ones, Tatum's moment of reflection was interrupted by Reed's voice calling from the back door. Mac's ready to roll. Are you good? Reed shouted. I'm good. Let's get this done, Tatum replied determinedly. With one last thought for his family, Tatum rose from his seat and joined the others, his focus firmly on the task ahead. There was much to be done today, and the days ahead were only going to get harder. The end.